Owner of Waste Reduction Resources, which is really more like a hobby business because I really am retired. For the past several years, I've been asking remanufacturers, those are the people who take the products that get collected at the curb and make something new out of it. I've been asking remanufacturers why they won't speak up about the problems with single stream. Because those of us who have been in the trenches know it's a mess. There's a fear that the supplier will cut them off if they complain. Now, a supplier is the one who takes your stuff from the curb and bales it up and then sells it. So in our case, the supplier is the city of Fayetteville. Up at Springdale and Rogers, the supplier would be a major waste hauling company. The Chinese were the first major players to speak out about the problems with single stream. Lots of us, single stream got sent over to China. You know, when the Chinese would send over barges filled with stuff to sell in the United States, then their barges were empty, so they would backhaul with recyclables. But in 2013, they'd had enough of the single stream mess. And a friend of mine, a colleague, was down in Florida. I can't remember if it was the paper or the plastic conference meeting, but anyway, she said the fellow from China would not speak English. He was very angry, and he pointed his finger at the audience and said, "Quit sending your recycled garbage to China." We call that the green fence, their refusal to take any more of this mixed up mess. So that's when some of the information started coming out about it. Ripple Glass has been taking Fayetteville, from my understanding, but I'm going to let them speak for themselves. Clean glass that's separated from everything else for about 5 years. Be sure afterwards, when you get a chance to visit with them, to ask them about their purple bins and their tie-dye bins. I want to see one of those down there on Dixon Street near Arcega, so all the bars can go down every night and dump their glass. I hope that you will join me putting your hands together to welcome these wonderful people from Ripple up in Kansas City who have the courage to come forward and educate us about how single stream affects their industry.
Thank you very much, Louise. Can everybody hear me okay? Well, she's certainly speaking our language here about the recycling and effective recycling and how single stream has been a bit of a barrier. You know, it's people have been sold in a way a bill of goods about recycling through the single stream program, especially related to glass. So my name is Mike Gott. Sorry, I should introduce myself first. I'm Mike Gott. I'm founder and managing principal of Ripple Glass, which is a glass recycling company that's been around since 2009.
And you're an engineer.
And I'm an engineer, as a matter of fact. Electrical engineer is my degree. And I'm also, I moonlight as the engineering manager, technical director for Boulevard Brewing Company. I don't know if any of you drink beer or heard of Boulevard, but that's my day job. And actually, Ripple is my hobby. But it's becoming a really significant hobby these days. So, like Louise, I'm having a hobby that's meaningful. So, at any rate, I wanted to show you a little video about the history of Ripple, and then talk a little bit about some macro information related to the industry. I just came back from a conference up in Washington, D.C. We formed a new group named the Glass Recycling Coalition that I can talk a little bit about. So I wanted to give you the video here, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end. So if you can bear with me, I'm hopeful that it's going to work. We had enough technical difficulties here to begin with that I'm not confident, but I'm hopeful. So, Michelle.
Drop down in the white area.
Oh,
there you go. No. That one.
That one?
No. There should be a play. Oh. How about the arrow there? On the left. Yeah, the right arrow on the left. That okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
that's the next screen.
Square.
But we're trying to make this video play.
Can you double click on it?
I'll try that. Click. I didn't double click good enough the last time, so maybe it is double clicking.
If you want to try a little, I can pull it up on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. So back to the Ripple story. So you'll hear a little bit about it now, but in 2000, it started back in 2000, 2001 with Boulevard Brewing Company. We were really concerned about our environmental footprint, and specifically related to glass, because most of our beer was packaged in glass bottles, and we sold a good bit of it in Kansas City. And Kansas City had effectively zero glass recycling. So we saw that as being a bit of a problem, and actually we were part of the problem. We were a significant part of the problem because we were selling about 1 million cases of beer, or 24 million bottles of beer into the Kansas City market. So we were really directly contributing to the problem. So we said, okay, there's got to be something. Looking around the country and around the world, we saw all these communities, large cities, smaller cities that had an effective glass recycling program, and we thought, why is Ripple, what's so special about Kansas City, not Ripple, what's so special about Kansas City that we can't support glass recycling? What's wrong here? Something's broken. Okay, I think we've got it. We'll let it tell the story. Great.
The material we know as glass was first created over 5,000 years ago. Throughout the ages, glass has been prized for its remarkable properties and regarded as a valuable and even precious material, until, that is, the latter half of the 20th century. As recently as 1950, most of the glass food and beverage containers produced in the U.S. were reused or recycled, but by 1970, nearly all of those billions of bottles and jars ended up in a landfill. Despite the enormous amounts of material, energy, and labor embodied in every glass container, virtually all of it was buried underground, lost forever. Fortunately, this picture is changing. In the U.S., the glass recycling rate has rebounded to 30%, though in other parts of the world, it's well over 90%. We're doing better, but we've still got a long way to go. The average American, every man, woman, and child, uses 80 pounds of glass every year, glass that can be recycled over and over again. But why recycle glass? What's the point? Well, there are many, but here are 4 of the most important. Recycling glass means less material in our landfills, lengthening their life, which means fewer new landfills. Making new glass out of existing glass conserves raw materials and eliminates the waste and environmental impact of mining. Because glass melts at a lower temperature than its raw materials, making new glass out of existing glass uses 30% less energy. Consider this. Recycling just 1 glass bottle saves enough energy to power a 23-watt compact fluorescent for 16 hours. And making new glass out of existing glass dramatically reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Every ton of recycled glass means 600 pounds of carbon dioxide is not released into our atmosphere. To be effectively reused, recycled glass must be converted into what's known as furnace-ready cullet, a process in which contaminants are removed and the material is sized to meet the needs of the new user. Because glass is heavy and costly to transport, processing facilities need to be located reasonably close to the source of the recycled material. Despite strong demand for furnace-ready cullet, there was virtually no glass recycling in Kansas City or much of the surrounding region. There was no glass recycling because there was no local processor. There was no local processor because there was no glass recycling. The folks at Boulevard Brewing Company finally got tired of being part of the problem. So, with the support of local businesses and community organizations, they came up with a solution: Ripple Glass. Ripple Glass had to do 2 things at the same time: create a robust metro-wide collection network and construct a facility to process the recycled glass into furnace-ready cullet. Before we visit the plant, let's take a look at Ripple's innovative collection efforts. Those efforts began in late 2009 when these big purple bins, hosted by a variety of civic and environmentally minded businesses, began to appear in parking lots all around Kansas City. Within a few months, over 100 containers were strategically placed throughout the metro area. A public awareness campaign helped spread the news, and the bins were soon being filled with pickle jars, beer bottles, wine bottles. Ripple accepts all types of glass food and beverage containers. When a bin is full, the host notifies Deffenbaugh Industries, which dispatches a truck to pick it up and deliver its contents to the Ripple plant. Each bin fills up at least once a month, some more than once a week. Because businesses like bars and restaurants use a lot of glass, Ripple and Deffenbaugh teamed up to launch a commercial recycling program. small, dedicated glass dumpsters are now available, resulting in the recycling of large amounts of glass previously destined for the landfill. And because Kansas City wasn't the only community in the region to suffer from the absence of a processor, Ripple accepts recycled glass containers from cities and towns throughout Missouri, Kansas, and other neighboring states. The collection of glass will be of no use without a way to process those bottles and jars into high-quality cullet. So in 2009, Ripple Glass constructed a state-of-the-art facility to do just that. When recycled glass arrives at the plant, it's weighed and deposited in large outdoor bunkers. Processing begins when a loader scoops up a bucket full of glass, about a ton at a time, and drops it into this hopper. The glass flows into the primary sorting area, where strong magnets, air separation technology, and the human eye are used to remove large contaminants. The glass is then fed into a roll crusher and broken into pieces less than 2 inches in size. When necessary, these pieces pass through a dryer to remove excess moisture. The material is now ready for optical sorting. This sophisticated computer-driven machine uses beams of light to identify glass and non-glass materials. Every second, the equivalent of 15 containers flow past the unblinking eye of this amazing instrument. When a non-glass object is spotted, the machine fires a strong pulse of air to eject it from the stream. The glass then proceeds to another optical sorter, programmed to look for both contaminants and specific colors, in this case, brown or amber glass. When it sees amber, it again uses a quick blast of air to divert it into a separate stream. This amber cullet goes to make new glass bottles, including those used by Boulevard Brewing. The remaining glass is fed into a machine that crushes it to the consistency of coarse sand. Every day, several trucks, each bearing 25 tons of furnace-ready cullet, make their way to a nearby fiberglass plant. There, the cullet is melted and converted into insulation, helping to create more energy-efficient buildings. Ripple's advanced processing technology results in the recovery of more than 95% of the material received at the plant and produces superior furnace-ready cullet, virtually pure glass, ready for a second chance. Since Ripple Glass appeared on the scene, Kansas City's glass recycling rate has climbed from around 3% to almost 20% and continues to increase. We've made tremendous progress, but with your help, we can do much more. If you haven't started recycling your glass, visit our website to find a location near you. If you're already participating, thank you, and please help spread the word. More recycled glass means a better, cleaner, brighter future for all of us. Remember, even a small act can create a big ripple.
Okay, Michelle, how do I get back there? Oh, is it down here? Okay, thank you. So,
Please use your microphone, some of us are hard of hearing.
oh yeah, sorry about that.
Did you know the United States produces approximately 41 billion glass?
I can still hear it? Sorry about that. Sorry about the distraction. So, anyway, so one of the most interesting things we did and the most innovative things we did was the collection network. I don't know if you saw that, but that varies widely from the single stream system that you're familiar with, or many of you have heard about, and that we have a dedicated glass-only collection system which results in the highest recovery rate. So, bear with me here. So, out of that, and we'll take questions at the end, so I just wanted to lead you through some of the slides that we had here. So the single stream system you see on my right, your left, results, oh, sorry about that. I will, maybe I should take this microphone. How about that? Then I can be out of the way of the video or the visual. Okay. There we go. How's that? Okay. No, on your way. You can see? All right. Okay. So on your far left, you can see the single stream collection. This is an average number from a typical program. Recovers about 40% of the glass input. So of all the glass that gets set at the curb by residents, only about 40% of that will end up back into a manufacturing operation, which glass manufacturing. And as you saw in the video, all the benefits of glass recycling, or 99% of the benefits of glass recycling, are related to melting it down into a new glass product. So it's very important for glass to make it back to the remanufacturing system, or otherwise go into the landfill. It's an inert material, so it doesn't really matter too much to be there. It's just filling the landfill a little faster otherwise. So 40% gets recycled out of the typical single stream program. Out of a standard curb sort system, separated materials at the curb, you'll see about 90%, 90+% get recovered out of that system. And out of the separated collection system that we have at Ripple, we're in the high 90s, 95, 98%. So we get a great amount of material recovery there, especially compared to the single stream. So issues, why is this so? So if you can imagine, glass gets into a curbside bin, it goes into a truck, and that truck has mechanisms that compact the material. And something that's a novel, an even more novel situation now is a thing called lightweighting glass. So it's in manufacturers' efforts to save money on transportation and all those things, they've taken glass weight out of an individual bottle, and so all the bottles you see on your store shelves now are significantly lighter than they used to be 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So now these bottles break almost, if you look at them the wrong way, they'll break. So if you can imagine putting them into a mechanism that is going to squish the material, then they're absolutely going to break. And this is the fundamental problem of the single stream collection, is the extra handling of the glass. As the glass breaks, it's always going to break into some small particles, lots of small particles, and some larger particles. Those small particles, once they get into a MRF, a material recovery facility, they're not going to make it through all the sorting systems to get to the end of the pile where it's just the glass that will end up at a processor like us. They typically will get swept out with the paper, they'll get swept out with the plastic, they'll get swept out with something else, and some of it ends up in the glass pile, but then so does some of the paper and the plastic and all the other things. So one of the other issues related to handling glass at the single stream MRF is worker safety. So maybe you've seen videos about how a MRF operates. Typically they're done with a high degree of manual labor. So people standing on the sorting line, and they're trying to pull off the plastics, trying to pull off the papers, trying to pull off some of the gross contaminants. So they're pulling these things off, and if glass is embedded in these items, then they're going to have cuts and all sorts of things that aren't good. So, and then beyond that, there's definitely equipment wear issues related to handling the glass in a plant like that, because they aren't designed for glass. Our plant, our processing facility, is made specifically for glass, so everything is built with the specifications and all the things that we need to handle the glass successfully. In the end result there, we have about 50% contamination of the glass. So I don't know if you can see these pictures very well, but I have to put this down so I can show you. I'll hold up the little sample that we brought. What was the weight of this?
That was a 5-pound sample from Tulsa.
So here's a 5-pound sample of single-stream MRF glass. This came into us as a glass sample. On my right, your left, is the actual glass that was in that sample. And on your right is the stuff that isn't glass. That's the stuff we don't want. And one of the key things here, if you can imagine this sitting in a pile in a MRF or in our plant, when you look at it, it just looks like a pile of trash. The glass gets buried. And when it's wet, I can tell you that it's almost, this is where the unrecoverability comes from, and that, hold on, get back out of the way here. So the paper sticks to the glass and makes it inseparable, ends up at the end of the line, so that's how this stuff happens. So our plant was designed and built for handling our separated collection system. There are some glass plants in the country that are designed to more effectively handle that, and that's why there is a recovery rate of up in the neighborhood of 40%, because they're able to extract some of that mess. They're able to get it out of there. So that's the nature of our MRF glass. I think I'll hand it over to Michelle now, and she can talk a little bit, and then at the end we'll take some questions.
Okay, my name is Michelle Goss. I'm a regional business manager, so I'm the person at Ripple who is working with all of the communities outside Kansas City that have glass recycling programs like Fayetteville. We work with over 80 communities in the Midwest, and all of them have glass removed from single stream, so they're doing separate collection. I wanted to show you this. This is just pulled straight from a news story, and I think a lot of times other people say it better than I can, and so that's what you're seeing here. We're seeing now in the recycling markets that markets are super low right now for cardboard, for aluminum, for all the things that have traditionally been money makers. And that's actually kind of forced conversation about glass to come to a head, because MRFs can no longer support, typically glass is a loser or a negative for the MRF. Per ton it's going to be negative, or you might make a little bit of money. They can no longer prop that up. And so we're seeing things shake out across the country and conversations happening that we probably didn't dream would have happened a couple years ago. Things have actually gotten very, very interesting. This is from Montana, and Montana has their own issues with recycling, mainly being remote, but this is actually very applicable to pretty much every city that deals with single-stream recycling. Just to highlight it there, we see up to about 50% garbage throughout the glass that comes out of single-stream facilities. And because of that, that garbage has to be sorted out by a processor like us, or there's other companies that do it, and then of course they have to then landfill it. So this is an expensive process, and it also changes hands many times throughout this process to get the glass clean enough so that it can be used. You know, manufacturers are very, very picky. They're not going to take something that looks like that. It needs to be pretty well pristine glass. So right now, a lot of MRFs have been paying $10 to $40 a ton just for a company like Ripple to take their glass off their hands and clean it up and try to recycle some of it. That can't really happen anymore with the markets how they are, and I don't know if they'll rebound. We have no way of knowing this. And so if you're not making money on the other materials, it's really painful to pay to get your glass recycled. What I wanted to do, since we really keep our eyes out as to what's happening throughout the U.S. There's a lot going on right now related to glass. Houston, most recently, removed glass from their single-stream program. This is a huge metro area. This is a big deal. People were not happy about this. But this was completely a budgetary discussion. They have a budget shortfall. Glass is costing them money to recycle, and so they removed it from the curbside program. They replaced it with a small drop-off program for residents, and they're going to have a few months to transition to that. But it's pretty telling that the operator, the MRF there in Houston from Waste Management, said this is a negative value for us. Glass is a negative value. We can't support it anymore. We're going to pass that cost on to the city. And then the city decided, well, we're not going to pay it, and they took it out. We're seeing this happen quite a bit. Houston's just been the biggest one, and so it was a little bit of a shocker. Atlanta, this also came out. People are still putting their glass in the bins in Atlanta. And the main reason for that is that those that are running these programs, it's so hard to say, you can recycle this, and then change that. You really want consistency. And so in Atlanta, they're still putting glass in their curbside bins, but the two major MRF processors there have admitted it's going to the landfill. They don't have a home for it, it's too dirty, but I think people are hopeful, perhaps, that they'll figure it out at some point, and so in the meantime, they're encouraging residents to just keep putting the glass in the bins. This one is closer to home for us. We've worked with the city of Lawrence almost since we opened our doors. They had a very, very robust drop-off program. We had 5 of our purple branded bins. It's a college town, it's like Fayetteville. People there are generally well educated. They like to recycle. It's very important to them. They achieved almost a 35% glass recycling rate just through voluntary drop-off, which is almost unheard of. That's very, very high. They decided that they have very ambitious goals, and the residents wanted curbside recycling very much so. They put a single-stream with glass program in place. Last year was the first full year that they did this, and we've been trying to work with that MRF that's processing that material for them. They're doing some hand picking of the glass. Mike referred to a lot of manual sorting at these MRFs for glass. But sometimes that's one of the better ways to get it out and get it clean, but you're only going to get a fraction because they're really aiming for the large chunks and the big bottles, the wine bottles, the liquor bottles, and there's not a lot of that left after it's been dumped several times and compacted. So what we're seeing with Lawrence is that through the drop-off only program, we recycled a little over 1,000 tons in 2014. That was a full year with that program. They switched to single stream right at the end of that year around Christmas. And then last year, they had the full year. We still kept the drop-offs there, and people still use them. About half, it went to about 50% of what we usually would see of people still using those drop-off bins. And then the glass we got from that MRF, which was mostly hand-picked glass, those two things combined added to 893 tons, which is a decrease. And so the glass in the community, a lot of people put in their bin, it went through the MRF, process, which is fairly expensive, an expensive process, and a lot of it didn't make its way out. We know more glass is getting put in bins there. You know, more glass is getting recycled there right now, but it's just not getting recovered. And so that's actually been a hard hit to us, but they're so close to home, and they were really, really a great partner for us, and they were really trying to help the city and the MRF work through this. I wanted to include Little Rock too, since they're neighbors. This just came out maybe a couple weeks ago. They're having a huge issue with contamination. They switched to single stream maybe 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3. 40% of the loads that are coming in to the MRF are getting rejected before they're even processed due to contamination. And this really has nothing to do with glass, it's other stuff. Little Rock, they are hand-picking the glass, like I talked about before in Lawrence, hand-picking the glass off the line and sending us about a truckload a month of this material. It's very clean, but somebody's having to hand-pick it. If you want to contrast that to Fayetteville, with the current programs, we're getting several truckloads a month, 2, 3, and let's think about the population difference there. So 1 truckload from Little Rock versus several from Fayetteville. I think that's pretty telling, and it's pretty typical whenever a community switches to single stream. I wanted to move into some happy stories because I don't want to be all gloomy too. There's so much good going on. It's really an exciting time to be in recycling because the market's being bad. It's really forced people to look and say, how can we build programs that are long-lasting, sustainable, that don't have to change regularly? Portland, Oregon is one that it's way up there, you know, as far as things to achieve for. And there are some things that are difficult about it for sure. But they designed their programs based around recovery of material. And so they really don't care how much is put in the bins. They care how much is actually recovered for recycling. And so that's their ultimate measure. I think when you design a program around recovery and actual recycling, you make really good choices. And so what they did is they decided to do composting pickup at households. They do a modified version of single stream, no glass, and they're very picky about what goes in it. They only take certain types of plastics. They only take the things that are really higher value and easier to recover with equipment at the MRF. And then they have weekly glass service in that yellow bin there, and they actually use the same truck as recycling. There's a compartment carved out in the side, and so they're not making multiple trips. You do see a lot of cities making multiple trips, and you can debate that one way or the other, but Portland has it rigged so that they